Music is magic. Now, please hear me for a second. If I had a wand that I could point at anyone in this audience and make them feel a certain way, that would be called magic. Now, I don't have a wand, but I do have this magic box. By pressing this box in a certain combination, I, and anyone who knows how to play the piano on just a basic level, can evoke an emotional response from almost every human being on this planet. That, at least by my definition, is magic. So now that we've established that music is magic, what can be used to explain this phenomenon? Today I will be discussing music theory, which is a tool that can help us understand and define the structure of music. The beautiful part, however, is that this understanding does not take away from the magic of what music is doing. During my presentation, I hope that you can keep that in mind. So a question that I've personally had for a long time regarding music is what exactly is the difference between genre? When we hear a song, we are often able to identify the genre subconsciously and without effort. Even when a song uses the same instrument, unless you are completely unfamiliar with music, it is unlikely you would confuse jazz from country, which in turn is notably different from heavy metal. So because of this curiosity, I decided to pursue the study of music for my senior project, specifically the inner workings of the differences between genre. What better way to pursue this question than to take an existing piece of music and rewrite it into different themes? For my project, I chose the intro to the song Fur-Elise and decided to convert it into the two genres of blues and jazz, as a way to both deepen my understanding of how to play in the genres and as well as my knowledge of the music theory behind them. I've been learning bits and pieces of music theory with my piano teacher, John, for almost 2 years now. And so going into this project, I had a solid foundation on the basics. However, over the course of the months leading up to this, I've had to drastically increase my knowledge on the subject, which can be both fascinating and overwhelming. I'm going to cover a lot in this presentation, so don't worry about retaining all of it, and know that it's a complex subject, and I myself am far from an expert. As I've established, music theory is an incredibly broad topic, but on a fundamental level, it's a tool that helps us describe the relationship between frequencies, what we commonly refer to as notes. Certain frequencies sound better together than others, depending on their similarity or complexity. An octave, for example, has a ratio of 2 to 1, as you can see up there, and is the least dissonant combination of notes possible. A seventh, on the other hand, is much more complex, and has a ratio of 15 to 8. When I play it, you can tell just how different that feels. And that feeling is what I'm referring to when I say dissonance. When I play it, and that feeling comes from the fact that those two frequencies interacting creates a vibration that is much more complex. So why Fur-Elise? Using the piece Fur-Elise has a number of benefits. First of all, it's very recognizable, and most people already have an idea of what it should sound like, which makes hearing different versions even more interesting. It starts like this, and most of y'all can probably already hear the rest in your head. Additionally, it has a fairly simple chord progression. For the most part, it modulates between the chords of A and E. And it stays in the key of A minor throughout. So now that y'all have a little bit of background, I'm going to play the original piece, just to remind y'all what it sounds like. During the first few measures, see if you can hear the chords in the left hand go from A to E and then back to A. Thank you. That wasn't me, that's still Beethoven, but thank you. When attempting to come up with my own versions of this, I ran into a number of complications. I chose the genres of blues and jazz somewhat arbitrarily because I thought that would be fun and interesting to play on the piano. And I failed to take into consideration just how similar they can sound. They both originated in the southern United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and both consist of a blend of African and European music traditions. Because of their influence on each other, both blues and jazz use elements from the other, something that I had to consider when trying to find distinct sounds for both my versions. During my first few attempts, I was left with two things that sounded very similar, and honestly was unsure if the project would come together as I'd envisioned. But after many lessons with my teacher and hours spent frustrated at the piano, I had two very different pieces of music ready to present. My solutions included different chord progressions, rhythmic elements, and different speeds, which I will get into later. So when writing the jazz version, I actually used the melody to drive the chord progression, instead of using the original A minor key. By treating the notes of the melody as the top note in a seventh or ninth, I was able to add a lot more color while still keeping it recognizable. When we think of a chord, a triad is usually what comes to mind. This is the most simple and common structure, and is made up of 3 notes, played in 2 intervals, a major and minor third. A 7th chord, however, it takes a basic triad and includes the addition of a third interval, which sounds something like this. The inclusion of that 4th note adds a distinct tension. Using sevenths and other extended chords in jazz is fundamental. And in addition to giving me a tool to make it sound jazzy, the different chord progressions also helped differentiate the songs further. So I'm going to play my version now, and see if you can hear how the chords in my left hand sound completely different from the original. Thank you. Overall, that was my least favorite of the 2 genres that I chose. I found jazz somewhat complicated and frustrating, but given more time, I'm sure I'll enjoy playing in it. For the blues version, I borrowed heavily from John Baptiste, a well-known musician who already has a blues adaptation of Fur Elise. Like I've said, Fur Elise is in the key of A minor. And so to give it that blues sound, I use a similar structure to Baptiste, using the A minor blues scale, which sounds like this, and improvising over the original chord structure. Something like that. Now, blues scales are a version of pentatonic scales. Pentatonic scales contain 5 notes and are found throughout the world across different periods, cultures, and different genres. They sound like this. However, in the blues, these 5-note scales are played with certain notes flattened. It injects a half step into the pentatonic scale that doesn't exist in other genres and is responsible for the unique sound. I also incorporated elements of the E blues scale, and while some of y'all might be unfamiliar with the terminology, because of its role as the dominant in A minor, it harmonized well. Another major part of the blues is the distinct rhythmic element, as I mentioned. In my song, I use a lot of triplets, And in music, triplets are when 3 notes are played in the same amount of time, typically occupied by 2. I'm pretty sure that'll be easy for you all to pick out by ear. I don't think I need to explain it much further. So I'm gonna play my blues version now, and notice how the chords played in the left hand, the chord progression remains the same as in the original. However, the distinct rhythm and the different notes played in the right hand help to give it the sound like the blues. Thank you. Music is one of the closest things to our definitions of magic that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, something that goes wildly underappreciated. This is in large part due to the sheer amount of music that we are exposed to, even when compared to our parents or grandparents. With the advent of music streaming, every one of us can access billions of songs across thousands of different genres with just one app. This increased accessibility of music is by no means a bad thing, but it does require that us as individuals take time to really appreciate the wealth of songs, albums, and other musical resources at our fingertips. I hope that my presentation today gave you a little bit of insight into this crazy, complicated world of music and some of the theory behind it. And next time you open Spotify, put on a song in the car, or listen to a new album, I hope that you can take some time to appreciate the incredible thing that is music. Finally, a huge thank you to my mentor, John M. Churchill, for helping me with this project. He was able to make it today. He's sitting in the back over there. It truly would not have been possible without him, so thank you so much. I highly encourage you all to check out his music. He's John M. Churchill on Spotify, or you can scan the QR code right there. A huge thank you to my parents as well for introducing me to the instrument, for driving me to lessons for years, and for their endless support and encouragement. And finally, thank you to my friends, teachers, and everyone else who made this project possible. Y'all have any questions? Yes.
So when you're driving to get a meal somewhere, what are you listening to?
So I listen to like a lot of different music. My top 3 albums in the past year were Beethoven Blues by John Baptiste, Long Live ASAP by A$AP Rocky, and Sublime by Sublime. So if that gives you a little window into it, I don't have one genre that I listen to a lot, so it would depend on the day. Yes?
Will you continue to compose?
Yes, I would love to. Hopefully, I'm planning on pursuing a music minor right now. If that could happen, that would be great. And yes, that would be part of that. Yeah.
As a piano player, what is the toughest challenge you face while
You said what's the largest challenge I face when trying to work with a famous piece?
You guys writing on your own music?
Yeah. I guess mentally it can be very draining. You don't think about it, but after I play the piano for an hour or two, I feel like physically tired. And so the drain from that, and then also sometimes I'll get bored with a piece, so I'll have to have the discipline to actually work with it long enough to finish it out and play it for a long time. So, yeah. Yes, Dr. Stotts.
And remember, look at you quoting Tom Petty.
Yes, right there.
Olive has just been introduced to Tom Petty, the Heartbreakers, and she's a fan as well. Don't give up on jazz. A great jazz pianist.
It's great. It's it's really hard.
Good job playing jazz. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
When did you start playing piano?
I've been playing on and off since like third grade, I think, but it's only been in the last like 3 years that I've really taken it seriously. Yes.
You said the blues and jazz were similar enough. It didn't sound similar when you played them that you maybe wouldn't have done the same ones. What later, when you're considering what genre might you have used instead if you're doing that?
That's a good question. I don't know. Another reason I landed on blues and jazz, like I mentioned, is because I thought that they would be the most interesting like genres to play on the piano, which I still agree with. But I do think like a rock rendition of Fear Elise would be really cool. I don't know how that would sound, but if I could put that together, that would be great. Yeah.
Who were some of your inspirations?
Like I said, John Baptiste was a huge inspiration. His album Beethoven Blues, I'd really recommend it. He did basically what I did, but for every single of Beethoven's most well-known songs, which is super difficult, and I very much applaud him for that. Also, I'd have to say my mentor, John M. Churchill. I love his music. I listen to it a lot. So those two people, I would say. Yeah.
Would those be composed by Beethoven and arranged by you?
Yes, I guess so. I think so. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.